Journey to the West has always been a story I have been, at the very least, vaguely interested in. Despite what a lot of y'all might think, I didn't grow up watching Dragon Ball.
Nani?
So it wasn't really my introduction to the ancient Chinese tale. I was aware of Dragon Ball when I was younger, thanks to my older siblings, but that awareness did not exactly lead me to looking into what had loosely inspired the super famous manga and anime. First memory I have of actually being told about anything to do with Journey to the West was this short animation made for the 2008 Olympics. See, I am 100% American, and I have never been outside of the US, so while I now recognize how massive Journey to the West is to China and their culture, I had no part of that. However, ever since I was told by my big brother what that animation was about back when I was 13, I have been very curious.
I swear he's perfect! How come no one in my class is like that?
And of course, years later, I got into Dragon Ball and had fallen deep into analyzing the mess out of that story and its characters, which included arguing with people online about how my interpretations of the characters were valid, and thus having to deal with said people literally trying to tell me that because Sun Wukong from Journey to the West is a selfish, arrogant, and borderline narcissistic jerk to just about everyone, that meant I was stupid for daring to say Son Goku was any different. Which led to when I had stumbled across the YouTube channel Overly Sarcastic Productions for different reasons, I binged their series of miscellaneous myths, Journey to the West, where they creatively summarized some episodic pieces of said ancient tale. And after I watched what they had of those at the time, I mostly forgot about the Monkie Kid. I'm not much of a reader, sadly enough, so even if I did have easy access to a universally accepted translation of the original story, I probably wouldn't be able to get through it. That didn't change how excited I would get every time I saw anything to do with Sun Wukong that wasn't just an excuse to reference Dragon Ball somehow. My sister can attest to that, as we were both losing our minds at the Jackie Chan Adventures interpretation of the character in one of their episodes. I am also a huge animation nut. Like I said earlier, that 2008 Olympics animation was my introduction to Journey to the West. I watched that and showed it to my brother because it was a cool looking animation that I liked. Enter this clip finding its way to my Twitter timeline as a friend of mine who is a voice actor was gushing about the voice acting.
Seriously? You fell for that? Sorry, kid. Nothing personal.
See, while said friend was applauding the actor's performance, which we will get to why that's very much so deserved, don't get me wrong, I was going absolutely ballistic over the animation.
Jeez, I think you've added 10,000 views to this one yourself, Izuku. I don't know why you like it. I think it's scary.
Yet, as I watched the clip over and over, something eventually dawned on me. These characters. They're Legos. Why are they Legos?
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Okay, so the reason is that the Lego company wanted a new theme for sets that would sell a lot more in China, and they wanted to make a cartoon to tie in with it. And seeing as to how the cartoon is basically just an overproduced toy commercial, all the characters need to look like their toy counterparts. Which, I will not lie, kind of gets distracting to me every rare once in a while. They did make a joke about this would be easier if I had fingers in the Season 2 opener special, but it didn't really land for me.
I feel like this would be easier if I had fingers.
Thankfully, that's the only time it ever gets brought up, so it's not something that's constantly bugging me or anything. And there's the occasional general Lego-related reference. I know of two from the opening two-parter pilot, but not any others. But for the most part, they're quick, painless, and blink and you'll miss it moments. That's mostly just a me thing, though. I don't actually think it's a fair criticism against the show. My biggest criticism I have with it is how it's so fast-paced and feels like hype basically 100% of the time. Let your audience breathe every once in a while, guys! The episodes will typically start slower, but that's not when we need breaks from the constant high-energy writing and visuals. I get that the episodes are super short compared to what y'all are probably used to writing for, and there's a lot of ground you have to cover in each one, but there's gotta be a better way to deal with that. However, that didn't stop me from binging the entire thing twice now, so I don't really think it's a big deal per se, personally. There's a few other minor things that may or may not add up depending on who you ask, like how it interrupts a lot of moments that could have / should have been more powerful without the out-of-place jokes, or how some plot points are really cliche in the world of children's action-adventure series, but as the series progresses, we see less and less of those things. The two-parter pilot is the worst offender by far of all 3 of those issues, but again, those are things I'm willing and able to look past for the sake of the bigger picture. But seriously, I can make the argument that Sun Wukong was the one who ordered the noodles in the pilot that led to MK being where he needed to be to kickstart the hero's journey, but there's no real indication of that in series. Like, at all. It is 100% headcanon at the moment, and I would really appreciate some sort of acknowledgement to that detail of who ordered the dang noodles!
Just one clue, a single decisive factor is all I need.
Just one oversight. A single piece of evidence is all it would take.
Just one thing.
Alright, so basic overview out of the way, I'm a character analyst first and foremost, so let's talk about the characters. First off, the character I was the most nervous-sided to see and the most prepared to be disappointed by despite the 2 clips I had seen prior looking promising, Sun Wukong, the Monkey King himself.
Bruh.
I mentioned before how I've always gotten really excited about Sun Wukong representation in other shows and how that's because I know enough about the original tale to have a good enough grasp of who he is in Journey to the West, at least IMHO, to know when an interpretation of him is at least decently accurate. Yet my hunger to see and know more about him has never been satiated because, quite frankly, the US doesn't really have any sort of media that has him as a focus of any kind, whether imported from other countries or not. And again, I'm not much of a reader, so reading a translation of the original tale has been out of the question. Those psychology books on parenting I read for the Goku's fatherhood video were out of spite. Even the Jackie Chan Adventures section of him was just a singular episode with him as an antagonist. Hey, how did that go over in China? Because the Chinese people on the Lego Monkie Kid story team in the documentary seemed to make a big deal out of him being an anti-hero, yet still a hero. I mean, like, I don't actually know everything about how the Chinese people feel about Sun Wukong, but I think that's kind of a weird thing. And no, Dragon Ball doesn't count. Dragon Ball is way too divorced from Journey to the West to count in any way, shape, or form. Son Goku is not, will never be, and never was a faithful representation of Sun Wukong, and neither was he ever meant to be.
It's not him.
Cry me a river, DB fans. Toriyama might have been inspired by Journey to the West for the first arc and first set of characters, but if you honestly believe said set of characters are actually representative of the JTTW crew, you should do more research. The next person who tries to even remotely imply that Goku and Wukong are one and the same is going to get called out for knowing nothing about Journey to the West.
That was his mistake!
So, how is the interpretation of Sun Wukong in Lego Monkey Kid? Now, don't dare to take me as some sort of equal to the opinion of someone who grew up with the culture of knowing everything about the Monkey King, but for what I have, I love him. I adore him. It's not exactly what I expected, but I wouldn't have him any other way. This series is meant to be a next-generation story of Journey to the West, a sort of unofficial sequel with the first lines of the pilot even making a point of saying the story is never truly over.
Written on the pages is the answer to a never-ending story.
So much was the intention of this that the company made a massive deal about consulting actual Chinese people who knew these stories extremely intimately. So, having the Monkey King be a more mature mentor figure who doesn't seem like the type to repeat the arrogant and reckless decisions of his past, but is still not apologetic about them, seems perfect. Real talk, I'm absolutely obsessed with the clip from the Impossible Delivery episode where Sun Wukong is telling MK about his lack of focus and MK goes off about how literally all of Wukong's adventures involve him being impulsive and dodging responsibilities to the point of listing off a few set adventures only to get cut off at the most comedic moments.
Oh, if anyone is the #1 focus guy, it's me.
What? Literally your entire legacy is about you being impulsive and dodging responsibilities!
That's where you're wrong.
That time you ate all the immortal peaches you were meant to guard?
That was a long time ago?
When you kept annoying everyone in the Celestial Realm?
That's a matter of opinion.
The time you picked a fight with Buddha?
I was holding my breath, waiting to see what Monkey King's introduction would be, and he was just as playful and relaxed as I could have hoped, while also having a moment of realizing MK was in a severe need of a confidence boost and offering up exactly that. And let's not forget his much more serious moments. That scene in the Season 2 special, Revenge of the Spider Queen, where he gets out of the web and faces off against the spirit. Let's talk about that. A big part of why this scene works is the voice acting, and the other big part is the animation and the effects. Y'all know I can't not bring that up. Just watch this.
So, you thought you had all the pieces right where you wanted them.
There are so many moves I've yet to play.
You should have stayed buried.
Oh, that's hot. That's hot.
And I really don't want this video to be confused with some sort of Dragon Ball compare and contrast, because I really want to stress how DB might as well be completely divorced from Journey to the West. We don't want to contribute to the Asian monolith myth after all. But because I know my main audience, I would be remiss to not point out that all because I feel like Goku is also a reckless character and that that's his main character flaw, doesn't mean that he and Sun Wukong are closely related. They share a character trait. Incredible. I could gush about Lego Sun Wukong over here all day because he literally is my favorite character in the series that I may or may not be questioning my loyalty to my SO over, but we really ought to move on to everyone else.
What else is there?
This is meant to be a general thoughts. Please watch this series. I love it so much, and also let LEGO know how awesome it is so that we can get an official release in the US already, because I want to support an official release with real money. Please, noodle gods, grant me this request. I will say however many decades of the rosary it'll take. Video.
Oh, this? Ooh. Nope.
Alright, let's bring up a character that took a little bit of warming up, but is quickly becoming an absolute favorite character. I'll also need to spoil some stuff from the Season 2 opening special at some point, but I'll put timestamps somewhere to help y'all avoid that section, should you wish. Okay, so for the fans of the amazing cartoon Avatar: The Last Airbender, let's play an imagination game. I want you to close your eyes and meditate on the character of Zuko in Season 1. I want you to boil him down to his bare essentials from Season 1. Fire Prince Antagonist, who just wants positive acknowledgement from his father, the king, because he wasn't hugged enough as a child. Now, up the theatrics of his character by about 3.5 times. Okay, open your eyes. Yep, that's Red Sun. That is basically Red Sun. So the reason he was a sort of acquired taste for me is because those theatrics are a little much. Okay, they're a lot much. He is just way over the top in everything he does. He is 100% feral and unhinged 24/7. Except for an incident in the final episode of the first season that we will get to eventually, where he first showed true vulnerability. It's a lot, and takes some getting used to. At least, it did for me. When I was first watching this series, I was a little concerned because of him. I was worried all of the characters would be these corn-chip villains with overly complex plans that they announce to the heroes the minute they get a chance. But, and I should have noticed this from the beginning, that's specifically Red Sun's whole shtick.
Perfectly balanced, this whole thing should be.
His own mother, Princess Ironfan, is rolling her eyes and clearly embarrassed by his antics from the pilot episode. And while May and MK are also pretty feral a lot of the time and can match his energy with very little effort, they aren't on his level. And honestly, I didn't completely fall in love with him, even though I was starting to like him more until that Season 2 opening special. Here's where we're getting into spoiler territory of Revenge of the Spider Queen, as well as the final Season 1 episode, The End is Here, to a lesser degree. The TLDR of it, though, is that Red Sun wants to make his father, the Demon Bull King, proud because he's seriously touch-starved. My poor guy is literally only acting as a villain because he wants approval from his father. That's why he's actually pretty quick to team up with our heroes to save him and the city after Demon Bull King gets captured by the Spider Queen. Yes, he plays up the I just want to steal your ship and take it to the Celestial Realm so I can get some ingredients to fix the zombification situation all on my own and save my father. And yes, the ship is literally all he wants / needs from them, but the reality is you can tell by his body language and dialogue that he's not actually completely opposed to working with the heroes. He just won't admit it. And everything he does in the entire show is in an effort to get DBK on the throne to rule the world, which is just to make Daddy-O proud of him. Part of me wonders if he even cares himself about being ruler of the universe. He just seems to relish in his ancestry and enjoy the title of royalty, hence constantly calling everyone else peasants.
This peasant. Peasants. 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 Peasant. Peasants. Peasants. Peasants.
The fact of his motivation being just wanting to make his father proud of him is made especially clear by this clip at the end of the special.
Father, let's never tell Mother anything that happened today.
Agreed. Come along, son.
Son?
And that scene I mentioned earlier from the season 1 finale where DBK is being mind controlled to some degree by the evil spirits, along with another scene from the season 2 opening special where May brings up that situation, also supports this.
Why would I trust you? You have brought me nothing but failure. Time and time again, nothing but disappointment. Traitor? Yes, perhaps.
No, Father.
You thought you could deceive me? Stand against me?
So, here to help MK beat your dad.
That was one time! My father, the great demon bull king, was not himself.
I feel like it's also worth noting that DBK doesn't seem to be purposefully avoiding giving his son positive acknowledgement, and I kind of wonder if he even realizes that Red Sun desperately needs it. I get the sense that DBK is just not the kind of guy to express his feelings, and thus, while he may feel at least some pride for Red Sun and his abilities, he doesn't feel the need to make that clear at all. And the uncertainty from a child who just wants approval from their father that gives is totally not relatable at all. Speaking of totally not relatable at all family drama, let's talk about May. May has a big name to live up to thanks to her heritage being directly tied to the Dragon of the West. She is literally the descendant of a great dragon, and honestly the entire episode Coming Home is pretty explicit about this, so I don't really feel the need to go too in-depth in breaking that down, but it is an important part of the appeal of her character. Her big moment of realizing that she's not a disappointment to her family tree and that the way for her to stop feeling like one was to just have confidence and face that insecurity head on via a declaration that she is a part of this family and that she is worthy of the Dragon's Claw, that is heard by a very proud pair of parents, is totally not something that would ever resonate with anyone ever. God, I wish that were me. And I know there shouldn't be a need for calling attention to the breaking of gender norms or the fact that a well-developed character is female, but in this case, I think there is. Especially considering how, according to the documentary on the making of this series and LEGO theme, she was praised by the Chinese consultants on the story for being good female representation for Journey to the West that was previously lacking. Don't worry, I won't dwell on it too much. I just really want to mention how May's character doesn't feel at all like obligatory token female, despite her initial inclusion being based on that. As well intended as it is, that is the reason for her inclusion, and how much I appreciate that. She feels like her own character, like our incredible head writer here is one of the few authors in the world to grasp the concept of there not being some secret and complex difference between writing a male and female character. Just like with any other character, consider their background and setting to form their personality. Sometimes gender has to do with elements of that, and sometimes it doesn't. That's it. She's not a tomboy-based character because she refuses to accept gender norms and wants to make some sort of grand statement about being not like other girls that constantly needs to be brought up. She's just naturally like that. And it's perfect, and I love her.
This is one of our many long hallways. We also have the Celestial Jade Garden, the room with the 30 centuries of antiques, full of Thousand Tears, tea and snack room, and my bedroom.
I know this is going to disappoint a lot of people, but I don't really have much to say on the rest of the main team, aside from MK, but I'm saving him for last, TBH. I love them. I love them a lot, don't get me wrong. But at the moment, there's not really much to work with as far as diving super deep into their characterizations. There's plenty of opportunity for more of them, and I genuinely hope we do see more about their personal thoughts and feelings, because I really do genuinely love them. But other than the question of what Sandy and Pigsy's past specifically is together, and the bit of Pigsy and Tang's relationship dynamic building from the 4th episode of Season 1, Noodles of Death, or the fact that in that same episode, Tang made a reference about it being MK's father figure.
The Monkie Kid. Why would he come and help you?
Well, I'm kind of like a father figure.
There really, honestly, isn't anything to talk about. Nothing that's not just surface level stuff that just breaks down what a basic pitch of the characters would look like, at least. So let's talk about some of our antagonists. Excluding the Demon Bull family, because we've already talked enough about them via Red Sun section, and much like our secondary main characters, there's not much else to talk about other than they seem like a good family, and TBH, Princess, Iron Fan, and DBK are super cute together. Jin and Yin, the gold and silver demons, are absolutely incredible. I love them so much. They are so funny and comically incompetent that you can't help but love them. I mean, look at their introduction from the Calabash episode.
We're your worst nightmare! Jin! Yin! The gold and silver demons!
Mate, it's silver and gold. Silver and gold. Gold and silver.
I'm not having this conversation again.
We had heard about the great Monkie Kid and knew that he'd be a worthy adversary.
Yes, and through cunning and guile, we called out to you, and you foolishly answered.
They're great. Every second they're on screen is a treat. The Spider Queen is a lot of fun as a villain on her own, and is one of those equal parts funny and intimidating whenever a scene calls for either or, and I can't wait to see what the evil spirit has in store with her. Speaking of the evil spirit, this is how you do a mysterious and terrifying villain. What are they? Where did they originate? I almost don't want to research their possible involvement from Journey to the West, because the mystery behind what they even are and why they would want to rid the memory of Sun Wukong from this world makes my heart beat fast with anticipation, and it's such a great feeling. I want to wait for the show to reveal all this information to me. I don't want to be able to put the pieces together myself via outside sources, even if that outside source is the series' predecessor. Absolutely, the show needs to give some hints of foreshadowing or clues to the puzzle before the ultimate reveal, and if I figure things out from there, that's awesome. But again, I don't want any pieces from outside the series, and I do not care if the series' target audience has said pieces already. Alright, who's next? I feel like I'm not ready to end this video off with my thoughts on the main character himself because I'm missing some of them. Like, I'm purposefully blanking out an entire episode because it awakened very confusing feelings for me. Almost as if my being a dedicated and very open furry has something to do with a quiet shame of my thoughts on one of the series' antagonists. Like, I don't want to admit to my posts expressing my love for a certain character being anything more than a joke. Like Oh, hello there, Mr. Evil, dark version of Sun Wukong, who has a very low and relaxed tone to his voice and has an insecurity behind his similarities to Sun Wukong, and who carries a certain energy to his body language and delightful enjoyment to his villainy. What did you say your name was?
Macaque. Actually, the six-eared macaque is, my full name.
Oh, the six-eared macaque. Don't mind me. I'm just gonna rewind that line where you said "see you around, MK."
See you around, MK.
And that part where you took MK's powers and slammed him against the mountain. Actually, I'm just gonna rewatch this whole episode again. Yeah, it's getting kind of hard to think straight right now. Should I see a doctor? I might have a fever. Wow. Okay, so we're just gonna move on from that. Let's talk about MK! Yay! MK is such a perfect successor to the Monkey King Sun Wukong, and is especially a perfect main character for this series given that premise. He isn't exactly like Sun Wukong, he is his own person, and that fact not being lost on the series and being purposefully brought up explicitly in the Season 2 opener special makes it even better. He is the next generation Monkey King, and his story is the next generation of Journey to the West. He is a well-developed character that, thanks to the input of the Chinese side of the story team, is not a carbon copy of main characters we've seen from other action-adventure children cartoons. At least not of what we see in the West. He's a bit lazy, he procrastinates, heck, there's an entire episode about his lack of focus, and he often has a hard time completing the tasks that he's expected to do well, but he's not disrespectful.
It's not him!
Over here in the West, we play with sarcasm and disrespect as a joke, both in our media and in our day-to-day life, and because of that, a lot of our main hero characters, mostly the younger characters, but can also be the older ones, are disrespectful to authority. They're cocky, and MK puts on a loud show of that as a way to mask his insecurities and imposter syndrome. They feel like they know what's best, and they never take input from anyone, especially not from their elders.
That was his mistake!
In a show geared more towards a Western audience, MK wouldn't simply say, "Yeah, I was actually about to go on my breaks, when Pigsy told him to deliver the stinking noodle orders that had been sitting around." He would have said something sassy like, "Why does it matter? Chill out, Pigsy, I'll get it done when I'm good and ready." Granted, I will admit that a lot of America's modern children's cartoons like Gravity Falls and Steven Universe do show the main protagonist having similar respect, but it is a common theme for young heroes to be sassy, especially towards authority figures. It's not a hard, fast rule, but it is a very common theme.
Finally, a good reason to punch a teenager in the face!
And we almost got that with Monkie Kid. And I'd hate to live in the universe that got that version of the cartoon.
It's pretty much my whole identity. The meat and sarcasm guy.
Again, I can't speak at all for the Chinese perspective on this show, and I'm not trying to come anywhere close to that. I am simply speaking from my own experiences and culture. And this series and its main character are fresh, exciting, and new. We need more cartoons like this. We need an official release of Monkie Kid in the USA, and count this as my promise. If we get a proper release in the USA that includes a continuation of the series that lives up to the groundwork it has set up for itself, I will give a more in-depth analysis of MK. There is so much to talk about involving him and how he resonates with me, especially that imposter syndrome bit. There is so much that I love about him and so much that I feel is going on deep within the surface of his character that I could not possibly cover it all in a video that is already way longer than I initially intended.
I'm internalizing a lot of stuff right now.
I wanted so badly to touch on all the characters in this video that's intended to be a first thoughts introduction to the series and hopefully a successful attempt at convincing y'all to watch it. Or at the very least, support it where you can. I'm gonna have my editor include the ending credits that play at the end of each episode for the end of this video, as well as include a link to the IMDb page, because the names of this team need to be heard and spread around. No, it's not a perfect show, and sure, I'll admit my neurodivergent butt that loves to hyperfixate on stuff might be overselling it a bit, but I really do feel like, even if I'm overblowing it a little, it is a show of high quality that needs more recognition internationally. This show needs to be a universally known and loved show despite its intended childish nature. No, it's not going to reach the level of Journey to the West, and most likely not the level of Dragon Ball as far as cultural importance for anybody. And yes, it is a children's cartoon, and as you watch it, that's pretty dang clear, but it is more of what we need to see in television. Maybe one day, American adult animation could learn from it. Give us a show of this quality across the board, but with more adult themes and complicated storylines and struggles that doesn't rely on sex, drugs, and alcohol to be considered adult. Pixar's Soul is a good example of a movie that's appropriate for children to watch, that's truly adult thanks to its themes and characters. But Pixar can't be the only ones using animation to its full potential in the US. Enough of the Rick and Mortys and the BoJack Horsemans. As good as the writing and characters from some of those shows may be, a show doesn't have to be pessimistic and hateful towards the world to be considered adult. They also don't have to have nauseating colors and character design with bare-bones animation because we don't want parents to accidentally confuse them as being for kids or something. I am clinging to a lot of children's cartoons because I love animation. I struggle to read for reasons I'm still trying to figure out, and they're the closest I can get to the stories I want from that medium. Come on, America. Let's make something as beautiful and with as much love put into it as this show. Let's set aside our prejudice for animation and recognize it as the art form that it is. We can write even better storylines, even deeper characters, more complex and great outcomes. We can have mind-blowing cinematography and animation. We don't have to wait for some random Danish-based toy company to see an opportunity to expand their sales in a foreign nation for a piece of work as incredible as this, with a silly conception and childish execution, to show what this art form can truly do. I want more shows like this in the States. I want more shows like Lego Monkie Kid.
You can build a buggy, drive a big tow truck. You can paint a jet ski yellow like a duck. All around the island, we're going around the bend. Break it down, baby, break it up again. Brick by brick, talk by tick. No matter how thin, no matter how big. You can move a mountain, you can move a mountain. You can move a mountain if you do it brick by brick.
So, you thought you had all the pieces right where you wanted them.
There are so many moves I've yet to play.
You should have stayed buried.